Welcome to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success. I'm also excited to share my book, Straight from the Admissions Office, a review of my biggest takeaways from the first few hundred podcast episodes. It's packed with direct insights from admissions professionals and practical tips to help students and their families navigate the college admissions process. You can find all of the information in the show notes. Welcome to the CAPP, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Dante. Welcome to the CAPP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. I am your host, John Dante, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce you today Jim Fowler, who's the VP for Enrollment Management at Salve Regina University in beautiful Newport, Rhode Island. Jim, it is an honor and pleasure to have you. How you doing today?
I'm excellent, John. Thank you so much for having me. We just came off an extremely successful open house program yesterday. We had over 600 families on campus. So I'm a little tired. Talked a lot yesterday. We'll be talking with you this morning, but always excited to be sharing my thoughts about Salve Regina University.
Well, that's terrific. Well, congratulations on the open house. And we definitely look to hearing a lot about Salve Regina University and so much more. So, Jim, for those who may not be familiar with Salve Regina, can you start by giving us an overview and what makes it stand out among other institutions?
Sure. Well, Salve is a smaller liberal arts university that's located in a historic oceanside campus in Newport, Rhode Island, which, if you're not familiar with Newport, Rhode Island, is this huge resort community that is literally on an island. So we are surrounded by water. You got to take a bridge to come over to us, and it makes a really unique environment for students to attend school. And I think really what sets us apart, aside from our mission, which I know we'll talk a little bit more about, is our approach to education, which is centered on what we call our Salve Compass. And what the Salve Compass does is it makes sure that each and every student has a very clear pathway to personal and academic success over the course of 4 years in a very clearly scaffolded process. So the students are receiving a team of advisors that will be working with them both in terms of what they're doing in the classroom, what they're doing outside the classroom, how they're going to plan for their success, and how they're going to make that plan a reality over the course of 4 years. So I think, when I think back to my own college experience, there was definitely a sense that you got dropped off to school and you kind of had to figure it out on your own. And we believe that when you're investing in higher education today, that students shouldn't be left to figure everything out on their own, that there should be a really clear understanding of why you're doing what you're doing and how those building blocks build over the course of 4 years to help students achieve their postgraduate goals. And so that really, to me, is right now what sets Salve apart from other colleges and universities.
Well, thank you for the overview and really explaining what, in fact, does set Salve apart from other colleges and universities. And a lot of people, they ask me, Jim, about the mission and philosophy of different institutions. So I know that Salve Regina's mission emphasizes mercy, justice, and compassion, while also blending a liberal arts foundation with professional preparation. How do students actually experience that mission and balance in daily campus life? And for applicants, what's the best way to reflect their understanding of this mission in their overall application?
Well, let me begin by just explaining our mission a little bit because it is unique. We are an institution founded by the Sisters of Mercy, so we're a Catholic university, but as our mission statement clearly says, we are an institution that welcomes people of all backgrounds and all beliefs, and ultimately a place where we're looking for our students and alumni to work for a world that is harmonious, just, and merciful. And what I really appreciate about Salve is how for us, that mission is a cornerstone of everything that we do. It's not an afterthought. It's not something that's just posted on a sign somewhere on campus that people occasionally refer to. It's really integrated into the entire university experience. And to understand that mission, you have to understand a little bit about what are called the Sisters of Mercy critical concerns. And the 5 critical concerns of Mercy are issues like immigration, human migration, and the importance of individual dignity in dealing with issues related to immigration, the challenges faced by women in the world, and the fact that we still don't have gender equality, and how we're working towards that. Earth and sustainability and our responsibility to really maintain this unique home that we have in the universe. Utilization of nonviolence for the solving of conflict, and working against racism. And so when you think about the challenges that are faced by our society and our world today, and you think about these 5 critical concerns, you recognize that each of these critical concerns, either one or multiples of them, really address most of the issues that we face as a society. So we believe that Salve Regina universities are uniquely positioned to become the leaders that the world needs today at this point in human history, to really lead us forward through some of these challenges. So how do we make it real for our students? Well, first and foremost, it is really embedded in both our curricular and our co-curricular experience. So students will learn about these critical concerns within the classroom setting, and actually each year we highlight a specific critical concern. So this year, not surprisingly, it's immigration. And immigration being a huge issue that we are dealing with, not just in the United States, but across the world. And what does it mean to have borders, and what does it mean to address migrants and refugees? And so what ends up happening is each of our faculty will try to find a way to bring that into the classroom in one way, shape, or form. So for a literature professor, that might be highlighting a novel that focuses on immigration issues. Or for an economics professor, it might be looking at how immigration impacts the national economy or a state economy or a local economy. So it's really thoughtful, and it, I think, highlights for our students that these are important issues that even though they're going to college to maybe study nursing or to, become a psychologist or a teacher, that we all have to address these issues, and we're all leaders in society and have to be contributing to society in an important way. And we have to understand these issues to do that.
Well, I also appreciate you mentioning many of your popular programs, including nursing, education. You're big on business and biology, but I wanted to ask you a follow-up question about the mission, Jim. If students are able to demonstrate their knowledge of that mission at different points throughout their overall application, does that put them at a better place in terms of getting accepted to Salve Regina?
Absolutely. We're a holistic admissions environment. So while obviously the most important aspect of a student's application is going to be their academic achievement, we're also very much looking for fit, and we're looking for students that are going to most benefit from being in this type of environment with this type of approach to education. So when a student can articulate for us, and we often see this in essays, we often see this in letters of recommendation, that students speak about what they've learned about our mission and how that mission speaks to them and how they want to be a part of that experience in their personal growth over the course of 4 years.
Well, we appreciate that. And so we started touching upon the holistic review. So let's break that down even further, Jim. How do you evaluate the rigor of a student's high school curriculum, including honors, AP, IB, or dual enrollment, especially in the context of what's available at their high schools?
Well, and I think that last point is really the most important point, is what's available at the high school. not every school has the same amount of resources. Not every school has the same curriculum. Some schools may have a small number of AP courses. Other schools may have a full cadre of them. Some may not have anything at all in terms of advanced. It may be a very strict curriculum that everybody takes. I know for my son, he went to a high school with an IB curriculum, very different experience there. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to evaluate what the curricular opportunities are for a student, and then how they're challenging themselves within that curricular experience. And then we want to see how they've performed in that curricular experience, and not just how they performed, but what that trend of performance is. So is a student continuing to improve over the course of 4 years or remain a consistent high level? Are they dropping off? Are they slacking off as they've gone through the process? All of that is considered in the application evaluation process. But for me personally, I will say that I am in particular drawn to a student that goes a little bit further and challenges themselves. One of the things I said to my son when he started high school, and I bring up my son because he's now a freshman here at Salve and is doing very, very well, in part because I think he took this advice to heart, which is take the strongest curriculum you can that's appropriate to your intellectual capacity. And if that means that you're not going to get that A, which we constantly get told, like, it's all about getting A's, all about getting A's. I don't believe that. I think it is about learning and growing and gaining knowledge and gaining understanding, even at the high school level. And so, when my son went to high school, I said, he was a little bit concerned about taking IB curriculum. And I said, no, you're a smart kid. Maybe not as motivated to get the work done as I would like, but you're going to benefit from that IB curriculum because it's going to make you think at a higher level. It's going to make you respond at a higher level. And sure enough, like, he did well, but he didn't, excel. He wasn't a straight A kid. But when he's gotten to college, he was ready. And that's the really most important thing. I think too often we think about this whole process as, how do I get into the most selective school, as opposed to what am I going to do when I get there, and how prepared am I going to be for the rigor of work that's coming at me. So what I like to see is a student that sort of says, okay, I'm capable of this. It might be a little bit of stretch, but I'm going to go for it because I know it's going to prepare me for that next step when I transition from high school to the rigors of a college curriculum.
Well, I appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. Too often the focus is on getting the straight A's, when in reality, students, you should be looking at the courses, the curriculum that's available to you at your high school. And of course, it differs from school to school, but based on what's available to you, challenge yourself to the best of your ability, right? Don't overdo it, but definitely challenge yourself, because at the end of the day, if you're not getting the straight A's, it'll definitely prepare you academically in terms of whatever school you end up going to. So we appreciate that, Jim. And of course, another part of the overall application are those letters of recommendation. And strong letters of recommendation can really bring an application to life. In your experience, Jim, what makes a recommendation truly stand out to your team? And can you share perhaps an example of one that really stuck with you?
Yeah. We'll answer that question in a second. I want to go back to what we were just talking about, though, and just sort of say, I think the school counselor is really important in this, because sometimes what will happen, I know, is that a family will say to the school counselor, I think the kid needs to be in this course. And the school counselor will say, well, based on the information I have here, they probably are better off in this course. Trust your counselor. I have great respect for school counselors and the work that they do, and how they work for the success of an individual student. And so they're going to know best what's going to be right for that student within that curriculum. So I think that's really important note to make. And I'll extend that now to the letters of recommendation. What I really love to see within a letter of recommendation is something that I can't see in other aspects of the application. So oftentimes I'll get a letter of recommendation and it might say, this student is great. They got an A in my class. Well, that's fine. I saw that on the transcript. I want to know how the student interacted in the class. I wanted to know about their intellectual curiosity. I want to know about what struggles they've had. Have they had to overcome some obstacles in order to be successful? Are there certain things that really impacted their academic performance, either positively or negatively, and how that can provide some context to the application? I think that there's a misunderstanding about college admissions that people that are in college admissions and reading applications are looking for reasons to deny a student, when actually it's exactly the opposite. Every admissions professional I know is always looking for a reason to admit a student. So any context we can receive that helps us understand what it is about this student that is valuable, what it is about this student that's going to allow them to be successful in the long term, and how they're going to embrace the college opportunity, that's going to be useful for us in the process.
Well, I think those are great points. And I want to repeat also what you said earlier. You were giving some advice to students and parents to really listen to their counselor. And you're absolutely correct. The school counselors are a wealth of knowledge and a tremendous resource because, yes, they know the student, but perhaps what's equally as important is that they really understand the curriculum in the high school that they serve. And I'm going to add to that, in addition to the school counselor, it is important to listen to the recommendations of the teachers from one year moving into the next in terms of which course you should or perhaps shouldn't consider. Because again, they know your child, but they also know that curriculum inside and out, which I think is really important. So with Salve being test optional, Jim, what advice do you give students about whether to submit ACT or SAT scores, and how are those scores factored when they are submitted in your overall review?
Mhm. Well, first and foremost, they've got to be self-reflective and try to evaluate, what are those scores saying about you? Are they reflective of your academic achievement and your intellectual potential? Do they, did you have a bad day on a Saturday and they really don't do that? Or do they go even further to sort of say, you have great intellectual potential, but maybe you're not living up to it yet? And again, I think this is where the school counselor is so important, because the school counselor can help the student and the family to really discern where that test score fits with their overall academic profile. And I think that if that test score is reflective of a student's academic profile and intellectual capacity, or shows greater potential, that's when it's best to submit. If the score is below what a student is achieving in the classroom, and the classroom grades clearly show that they're a stronger academic student than the test scores show, then toss them to the side. We as a college don't need to see those. When we do see the test scores, ultimately, we're looking for two things. One, we're looking for, is the score reflective of what the student has achieved in high school? And what does that mean for them in context of all the other aspects of their application, particularly their letters of recommendation? So, I'll go back to the example of my son, because I think he's a good example of a good above average kid. He's very Lake Wobegon. He's every kid is just a little bit above average. And he is somebody that, had a B average in high school, in a strong IB curriculum, really good test scores. And so, what if I was looking at him without sort of fatherly pride, what I would see there is a student that has challenged themselves, has maybe some work to do in terms of learning how to perform in the classroom setting to meet that sort of potential, but that potential is there. And so what I see as an admissions officer is somebody that, hey, if I bring that student into my community and they get inspired by my faculty, they may just blossom and become, really reach that potential. That's because that's what our faculty really want to do. They want to help a student to reach their potential. They're not just here to stand up in front of the classroom and just toss information and leave it to the kid to do with or do not. our faculty want to help our students grow and expand and really become their best selves. And when I can put a student in front of them that is going to really embrace that and really enhance the classroom in that way, then I've done my job.
Well, I appreciate you talking about your son. And based on his overall profile, you're showing that he demonstrates a lot of potential. He's really strong. He had strong standardized test. He had a strong academic record, but you saw the potential in him, and that's what you want to provide to your faculty so that they can elevate students and, frankly, put them on the pathway to whatever comes next after college. So we appreciate that, Jim. And a lot of questions have come to me about enrollment goals. Hey, why don't you ask more about enrollment goals so that we can learn more about these institutional priorities and things like that? So, Jim, can you share your enrollment goals for the incoming class? How many applications you typically receive, and how those goals shape your overall admission strategies?
Yep. So this year we project that we'll receive a little over 7,000 applications for admission, and we'll be looking to bring in a freshman first year class of about 600 students. And so in terms of how we evaluate how we get from 7,000 applications to 600 students. We do a lot of historical analysis of yield rates and all of that, and we throw it into a big hopper of math and also individual counselor's review of a student's application. Here at Salve, we are reading each and every application, so we're not a school that's throwing everything into a computer and an AI is spitting out you're admitted or not. We read every application, and by the end of the application season, my staff is kind of bleary-eyed, but they all of them are bringing something to the table personal about that applicant that goes into the conversation about whether or not they're admissible or not in a given year. So typically we're admitting, we're moderately selective. We admit this year we'll probably admit about a little over 60% of our applicant pool. So, better than 6 in 10 chance of admission. Again, we're always looking for reasons to admit a student. And what we know is that with our applicant pool, we have students that are applying to a lot of great schools and getting into a lot of great schools. So they have a lot of options. And that's why I think sometimes people think, oh, college is so unobtainable. These schools, the school's only going to bring in 500 students and they're getting 10,000 applications. How am I ever going to get in? Well, actually, you'd be surprised. Getting in may not be as hard as you think it is, because at the end of the day, students are getting into 6, 7, 8 schools. They can't go to all of them. They've got to choose one. And so we as enrollment management professionals have to figure out how many do we need to admit in order to meet our enrollment goal expectation, which for us is about 600 freshmen.
Well, we appreciate that. So as you said, you get about 7,000 applications to enroll a freshman class of approximately 600, but your acceptance rate is at 60%, right? So it just gives a little insight in terms of how yields work and how the overall review really comes to play in your admissions office. And of course, another thing regarding those enrollment goals is the waitlist decision. So what factors influence whether a student is admitted from the waitlist? And is there anything applicants realistically can do to strengthen their chances, again, if they're on that waitlist?
Yeah. Well, we try to use the waitlist sparingly. So we're not an institution that has this waitlist that's hundreds of students long. So typically, if a student is on the waitlist for us, they have a chance of getting admitted off it. When we're looking at the wait list, the most important thing, to be quite honest, for us is demonstrated interest. If a student is waitlisted and they're calling us and they're saying, I really want to be at Salve, that's what we want to see. We want to see a student that wants what we have to offer. And when we know that, that makes the process much easier, so that if we know that we have space and the student may be on the cusp, then that's the first person we're going to go out to and say, hey, you've been calling us, you've been letting us know that you're interested. We know why you want to be here. That gives us the ammunition to sort of say, yes, absolutely, we want to bring you if we can.
Well, I definitely appreciate you talking about demonstrating your interest and how you do track it in your enrollment process here. So, students, if you get waitlisted, or frankly, before you even get waitlisted, demonstrate your interest at Salve Regina, whether it's doing a visit, visiting the admissions office. If they come to your high school, certainly introduce yourself to the college admissions representative and let yourself be known to them. Anything else you want to add, Jim, in terms of demonstrating their interest?
No, I mean, other than to say that this is a good opportunity for me to sort of share my philosophy on admissions, enrollment management, selectivity, and individual student value. Because I think that too often in today's world, students have put their value of self and tried to connect it to what schools they get into or whether or not they get into a college or university. And I want to fight against that. At the end of the day, you're entering a system that is both about trying to help a student find a right match institution, but also for institutions to meet enrollment goals so we can meet the needs of our students. That math doesn't always work out in a student's favor. And I think sometimes students look at that and say, I failed if I didn't get in, or I failed if I got waitlisted. No, that's not it at all. It's just, in terms of supply and demand and where you were trying to go and the number of applicants they had and what they were trying to do in terms of meet their enrollment goals and their institutional profile needs. You didn't quite make that cut at that point in time in, this frame in history. That doesn't mean that you weren't worthy. Oftentimes, schools are saying no to students that are very, very capable of being successful there, that would be very happy on their campuses. But just simply by nature of space in classrooms and in beds and all of that, it just didn't work out. So I hope that students will understand that if they're waitlisted, that it's not the college or university saying no. It's not a deny. It is a recognition that we think that you would be good here. Right now, the math isn't working out, but if the math shifts, and oftentimes it does, we want to be able to go to you and offer you that space. So don't take it as an insult to be waitlisted. Recognize that it's really the admissions office saying, we value you, we value your application, and we do think you're worthy, but right now the math just isn't working.
This is your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome back Sean Patel, who's the founder and CEO of Prep Expert. Sean, welcome back.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me. And I'm so excited to announce that Prep Expert is the official title sponsor of the College Admissions Process podcast. This has been a partnership in the works for a while now, and I'm so glad we got it off the ground. We're so excited to work with families, parents, students of the College Admissions Process podcast at Prep Expert to help them through our live online SAT and ACT courses, not only improve their SAT and ACT scores, but help them get into college as well as win hundreds of thousands of dollars in college scholarships. Thank you so much for the partnership, and we are so excited to work with your families.
Thank you, Sean. And to learn more about how Prep Expert can support your child's academic journey, visit prepexpert.com today, and best wishes to all.
Well, I think those are tremendous points in terms of the math not working or talking about things such as institutional priorities. So students, there is a lot that you do control in the college application process, putting your application together, your essay, doing well in class, but there are these institutional priorities that are out of your control. And I think Jim makes a great point that you need to understand that although the college application process seems so personal, oftentimes you're not admitted for things that are completely out of your control, such as institutional priorities. And so in terms of that, Jim, what institutional priorities are guiding admissions right now, such as first-generation students, geographic diversity, or mission-aligned applicants? And how do these priorities shape the way you and your team build each incoming class?
Yeah. Our primary goal as an institution is to try to create a freshman class that is as reflective as possible of our country's makeup as we can. And so what does that mean from year to year? We're right now, for example, and we're not going to be unique in this in small liberal arts institutions, there are more women right now going to college than men. And while Salve is an institution that, as I mentioned early on, it has within our critical concerns, issues of women are really important. And we actually we're a co-ed institution, but we began as a women's college. So we're acutely sensitive to that. At the same time, we recognize that there are fewer men going to school right now. We'd like to see some semblance of gender balance because we think it's good for everybody on campus. So, gender can sometimes come into play in the admissions process, being very transparent here. We certainly are interested in geographic diversity. We're technically a regional university. That's how we're classified. But we're seeing more and more students come from all over the country to Salve. So we've seen a large increase in enrollments in the last few years from students from Florida and from Maryland and Virginia and California, Texas, Chicago. So students coming from all over the country and all over the world, frankly, to us. And so we want to continue to see that growth because, again, we want to be reflective of the United States as a whole. And we're also looking at students, obviously, that are interested in our mission. That's important to us. Because it's such an important part of how we educate students. If a student doesn't see themselves as seeing that mission as something that speaks to them, then this might not be the right place for them. There's plenty of other schools with plenty of different missions and plenty of different approaches. We want the student that really is out there recognizing that they have a responsibility in receiving higher education to take that higher education and make the world a better place. And we don't think there's anything wrong with that. As a matter of fact, it's a point of pride for us, but not everybody's going to see higher education that way.
Well, I appreciate you pointing back often in this conversation to the mission, the philosophy of the institution. And I think it's a lesson for students to really dig deep and really look at the mission and philosophy statements of whatever college or university you're applying to and see if it's in line with you. And if it is, demonstrate your knowledge of that throughout your application. Perhaps talk about things that you've done in high school that aligns with it so that you really stand out as an applicant that would be the right fit for that college or university. So again, Jim, I really appreciate you pointing back a lot to the mission and philosophy. I think it's very important. And looking back, Jim, on your many interactions with students and families, what's a question you wish more students or parents would ask during the process?
Well, once upon a time, I really wanted students to ask about how that co-curricular experience is going to be reflective of the curricular experience, that there's a synergy between the co-curricular and the curricular, and how the life of the campus is going to help the student become their best selves. I still think that's a valuable question, but I've got to be honest, I think now that I know so much more about higher education, having done this work for over 30 years, in today's world, I also think it's really critical that families are asking some questions about the financial viability of the institution, because there are institutions out there right now that are teetering financially. And you do have to ask the informed question of, will you be here in 5 years? Will you be here in 10 years? Will you be here in 30 years? Because part of going to college and university is being part of a community that extends through the entire lifetime and having that as a touchstone to go back to. I know for me and my wife, we met where we went to school. We have great affinity for where we went to school. A lot of our personal growth and development and who we are is rooted in our college experience. If that school ever went away, it would be a loss of a touchstone for us that would be painful. And so I don't want students to experience that, and I think it's an unfortunate reality of the time frame in which we live that I think families do need to be a little bit cynical and question, is this college or university going to be there long term? And also ask the question of, and this goes to sort of issues of affordability and aid, why is my student getting X amount of aid? Aid is good. We want college to be affordable, but if a student seems to be getting an aid package that is off kilter with what their need is and what their academic achievement is, I think that can send a little bit of a red flag of, okay, I should look a little bit deeper into the finances of this institution to make sure that what I think I'm signing up for can be delivered on.
Well, I think those are tremendous points and something that hasn't come up in the conversations, and we've had over 300 episodes at this point. Asking the college, where do you see yourselves in 5 years, 10 years, 30 years? Are you going to be there? Because you're absolutely right. Although in my case, I graduated college a long time ago, you do look back at those days and you do still feel that sense of connection, and that the college is in fact still there would be a wonderful thing. So I really appreciate that question. And you brought up the topic of affordability and you touched upon it a little bit, but of course, affordability is often one of the biggest concerns for so many families out there. So Jim, beyond the mechanics of financial aid, how does Salve Regina communicate the value of a Salve education, and what do you wish more families understood about weighing cost against long-term outcomes? Now, you touched upon some of this already, but please enlighten us.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that I would say about affordability is don't be afraid or scared off by the sticker price, particularly with private institutions. I am a graduate of a public institution, and so I will be the first to admit that when I graduated from college and I started in this career working for my alma mater, I thought to myself, well, if you want to afford college, you've got to go public because the private schools are so expensive. And it wasn't until I started working at a private institution that I began to realize just how much aid is out there for families from private institutions, and that private institutions can be just as affordable as public institutions for many students. And I also want to point out that if you look at net cost of higher education over the last 30 years, what you're going to see is that while at one point in time net costs for families peaked, it's actually coming down. So even though sticker prices are going up, net cost because of financial aid and financial assistance from schools is actually coming down. So don't be scared off by the initial, this is the sticker price, because chances are at most institutions there's going to be financial assistance coming along to bring that cost way down. Now, in terms of the value of higher education, I cannot say enough about how I believe that higher education is not just valuable, but a necessity in today's world, because it provides students with an opportunity and a unique environment to, yes, grow academically and grow certain competencies and skill sets. But it also is sort of a pressure cooker, crock pot where you get to come together and grow as a group in a specific time frame of your life, where you have an opportunity to develop your values, to develop your worldview, to be exposed to many different worldviews and values, and begin to discern who you are and what you want to be in this world. So I think that's one value proposition about higher education that isn't necessarily talked enough about. We think much more about outcomes in terms of something very tangible, salaries, employment, grad school placement, all very, very important. But personal development is also a big part of this. And there aren't many opportunities in someone's life where they have an opportunity to assess who they are and work on themselves in a idealized environment that allows for a lot of testing and a lot of risk taking. In terms of outcomes value, though, that most families are interested in, which is is my kid going to get a job? Are they going to be out there in the world? Or are they going to be back living in my basement? I think here at Salve, we're very fortunate that we have a lot of data that articulates how well we prepare students for life after graduation. So I encourage families, if they're not aware of this, to check out the Georgetown Center on Education and the Workforce. They have done the only really true longitudinal study of higher education effectiveness that looks not just at where students are when they graduate, but where they are 10, 20, 30, 40 years out. And I'm really proud of the fact that Salve graduates are in the top 6% in the country for lifetime return on investment in degree based on their salaries and what they invested in their higher education in this study. And I think speaks to, again, the approach that we take in educating the whole person and making sure that they have the experiences to develop the skills and competencies necessary to not just transition from college into the workforce, but more importantly, to be lifelong learners and to be adaptable in a fast-changing world. Because one of the things, and I say this all the time in my prospective student presentations, when I went to college, I think about what I was studying, what my friends were studying, where they wanted to end up in terms of companies they wanted to go work for or careers they wanted to pursue. For many of them, those companies they went and worked for or those careers they pursued don't exist anymore because we're in this most volatile time in human history where change is happening so rapidly. So the college education is not necessarily a vocational pathway where you prepare for getting employed at X. It's really about preparing for life and preparing to address what comes at you as the world changes so rapidly, as new technologies come to the horizon, as new societal needs come forward. And so you look at statistically, most college graduates today will change their career 3 or 4 and sometimes 5 times. Not just change of job, but change of career over their lifetime because things are happening so fast. Is your college providing you the toolbox to be able to navigate that? And I think here at Salve, we do that very well.
Well, those are tremendous points. You touch upon return on investment, but you also talk about the overall experience at the college and far beyond the 4 years of your undergraduate degree. And you mentioned that study, which was very, very interesting in terms of the data that you shared. And so I think it's important, Jim, if we could link that study in the show notes, that would be tremendous. Just send it to me. And of course, we'll make it available to our listeners in the show notes. Now, Jim, you've given us so much great advice, so much great information. Is there a topic, though, that I simply didn't bring up today or a question that I didn't ask you about that you'd like to share with us now?
Yeah, I think one of the big questions about higher education right now at this point in time, there's a lot of conversation about political dialogue on campus. And I think that one of the other things I really love about Salve, and this again goes back to our mission and welcoming people of all backgrounds and all beliefs, is that we are the type of institution that really wants to promote a lot of open conversation, debate, thoughtful, respectful, but an environment where students can share a variety of opinions and learn from each other. They may not agree with each other, but learn from each other in a very respectful, thoughtful way. And I think what I appreciate about Salve is that I see that happening every day. One of the things we joke about here, and it's true, is we may be the only college or university in the country where the president of the Young Democrats and the president of the Young Republicans are roommates. Like they're best friends. They have completely different political ideologies. They're best friends, and and that creates a real signal to the rest of the university community that, when we have conversations about political issues, both sides are going to be represented. Other sides that don't represent a specific political party are going to be represented. And I think some of that extends too from us structurally, both our mission, but also we're home to what's called the Pell Center for International Relations and Public Policy, which is a really important think tank that does a lot of great work. Colin Woodard, who some of your listeners may be familiar with, New York Times columnist, somebody that studies political movements and ideological belief systems of various people based on their geographic makeup, which is interesting. He runs a project here called the Nationshood Lab that looks at how we can bring people together to really embrace this shared national identity that we have, to move forward together, not in a partisan fashion. At a point in time where I think a lot of people are really concerned about that as they're looking at colleges, is it about indoctrination? Is it about, is my son or daughter going to be able to go someplace where they can express themselves? I think Salve is a place where we're inviting students to express themselves, but to do so thoughtfully and to do so respectfully. And then hopefully take that when they graduate to, better our overall conversations as a society.
Well, you've done a tremendous job speaking about the mission and philosophy of Salve in terms of how you want everyone to work together respectfully and to move forward, right? Even well beyond the years that they spend at Salve. Jim, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Unfortunately, it does lead us to that last question, and you've given us so much advice and insights. But to close, what are your top 3 pieces of advice for students and families preparing for Salve Regina or any other mission-driven university?
Yeah. I think the first thing is to really know yourself, be reflective, take the time to think about what do you want from your educational experience, not just in terms of what major you want or size, but what type of environment you want to study in, what type of students you want to spend time with, and just overall what you want to get out of the next 4 years beyond just a degree. Then, be prepared to jump in feet first. Think about how you're going to get involved, how you're going to make the most of that educational experience. It's not just about going to class. It's really about becoming part of a larger community, and how are you going to interact and participate and contribute to that community, I think is important. And last but certainly not least, which is going to sound really, really basic, but read books. Doesn't matter what, nonfiction, fiction, you name it, whatever genre. College is still about reading. College is still about reading comprehension. College is still about how you're absorbing knowledge. And I think what we hear more and more is that at a time when so much is happening on video and so much is TikTok and you name the outlet that you want to utilize, that sometimes students are getting away from that traditional getting their noses in a book. And if you want to be successful in college, you're going to have to know how to read well. And not just read well, but read for comprehension. And so I tell my own sons this, it's a battle at home for me as well. Get through a book. It will help you in the long term.
Well, those are tremendous pieces of advice for not only the students, but the parents and anyone else that's listening. Jim, obviously, Salve Regina is so fortunate to have you, as were we, during this conversation. I look forward to having you back in the future, Jim. Thank you so much for everything you did for us today.
Much appreciated, John. It was a joy.
Well, it was definitely our joy and honor. And to everyone out there, good luck with the college search. Take care all, and best wishes.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the CAPP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Dante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the CAPP. Thank you for listening to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success.